Persona 3 Reload is almost a dream come true. It's a modernized remake of Persona 3 with updated visuals and gameplay. But of course, in good old Atlus fashion, we've got the monkey's paw to deal. Which is to say that, as you've probably heard by now, the remake is not including the answer from Persona 3 FES, or FeMC's route from Persona 3 Portable. That's right, Atlus had a chance to make a definitive version of Persona 3, and they didn't do it. And of course, that has led a lot of people to speculate on whether Persona 3 Reload is going to get the royal treatment. I mean, for me personally, I kind of hope it doesn't. I know it probably will, but there are a lot of differences between how the answer and Portable work in terms of new content that differ from Golden and Royal.
This is all hypothetical, mind you.
So for a minute, and just for a minute, I'm going to put aside the consumer side of me and think of this a little bit more on the business side, so maybe I can rationalize why this is happening. Please keep in mind this is all speculation. I don't actually know if this is why these things are happening.
Oh, this is all hypothetical, mind you, but...
The obvious answer is that if they do decide to add the answer in FeMC, they could do so via DLC updates or via a royal version of Persona 3 Reload. But it's very likely that the answer in FeMC's route never got past the planning phase of development for the remake. Not in any meaningful way, at least. So why wouldn't they choose to do so? I mean, the easiest answer you could come up with is money. Selling FeMC's route and the answer as additional content means more money later and less money going into the initial project. However, it's also important to consider that creating these two pieces of content means more time and money has to also go into development. Can a Persona 3 remake feasibly sell enough copies to cover the costs of all of this? Well, that's debatable because costs and profits are a lot more than just profit outweighs cost. Either way, I did see some speculation before the remake was out, and it was just rumors, that FeMC's route would not be included in the remake. And this would be due to costs, and in hindsight, it kinda makes sense. Even though I want it to be in the base game, I guess with the amount of content to remake and the amount of voice work we're being promised with this remake, it would be a very costly venture to add a second whole gameplay route for that. The answer might also require a decent amount of work as well, so I can't imagine that it was an easy decision to cut these two, but it probably makes sense more from a business perspective than from us. Again, it doesn't feel great as a consumer, but I can kind of understand it when I think about it from the business perspective, I guess.
I won't wait a moment longer. Answer me.
The interesting thing when I think about Persona 3 Reload getting a Royal Edition is that I'm really not sure if that's the route Atlus has to go with this. Of course, if they are going to do this, it seems like a no-brainer to me. I mean, Royal just sold, like, so many copies by comparison. Now, are they actually going to remake this content? Well, it's hard to say. There are some connections to P3 within P4 Arena, and if they want players to make those connections, they need to remake the answer. Because the answer is actually not available on any modern platform. Except through PC via emulation, but I'm not gonna count that. And it's not like Atlus completely disregarded FeMC. I mean, she appears a lot in promotional art for the anniversary, and she even got a slot in Persona Q2 after not appearing in the dancing game at all. However, that also could have been to promote the re-release of Portable. Anyways, I'm kinda convinced that down the line, this is what is gonna happen. More likely in a few years' time, but then there's that nagging feeling in my head that Atlus will just push it aside. They'll say, we did Persona 3 Remake, the answer and FeMC are not necessary for the remake, we're gonna move on. In some ways, that would be exactly what Atlus would do. But I mean, there's money on the table. I'm sure people would buy a royal version of Persona 3 Reload. Me included, because as I've said multiple times, I'm a sucker. I think it's more likely that we get a royal version of Persona 3 Reload a few years after it launches. But the frustrating thing is that the game really doesn't need this. I would much prefer a DLC package with this content because a lot of it is just not included in the base game. What I mean when I say that is that for Royal, I can kind of understand why they would do a re-release, because there's a lot of structural things that changed within the game. There are a lot of new events and new activities that open up. So I don't exactly know how you would patch that in per se as like a DLC thing, because then, you know, people who have the original game, would they get access to some of it? Would they get access to none of it? You know, it's kind of hard for me to understand it because I'm not a game programmer. However, the answer and FeMC are completely separate from the male protagonist route. The answer in Persona 3 FES is something you can choose on the menu, and FeMC is kind of the same way. It's like the boy or girl option in Pokemon. Even if I had to pay a hefty price for it, I just don't see the point of doing a full re-release of the main game. But regardless, I feel like that's what Atlus is going to do. Because honestly, it's probably more profitable to do that. And even if it's true that it would be too much money to make these two part of the base game, I just wish we got some information about that, something at least down the line, hopefully, that tells us why it's not included. Because the reasoning makes it sound like they determined it wasn't necessary to include to experience the full Persona 3, which I can kind of understand, but the answer is a pretty major piece to this story and its characters. Whether you like it or not, it's up to you, but I still think that it's kind of necessary to have this part of the story in there because you're missing a chunk if you don't have it. There are a lot of ways to interpret what they said, and I feel like the one that sounds the most favorable, at least to me, is that with what they had, they determined that the best way to remake this was to focus on fully enhancing the original game. The answer in FeMC just couldn't be feasibly done without more money and time.
That's not true!
And yeah, I'm still kind of disappointed. It doesn't bother me that much, because in the end, I'm truly satisfied that there's a crazy amount of love and attention going into this remake, and the amount of voiceover work that we're getting from it is insane if that's what they're actually doing. I can see a clear passion being put forth by the game, so I'm not really that down in the dumps about it, but it's unfortunate and still frustrating in the end that we're not getting a definitive version of Persona 3. And I want you to let me know what you think. Do you think Persona 3 Reload is going to get royaled? Do you think that this is fair? Do you wish that we got a more transparent explanation? Just let me know down in the comments below. As always, you can leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel for more things Atlus, Persona, and JRPG related. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Chaos exists. I knew it. I told you.